desperately trying to move this one on now.
Yes, let's not talk about Josh Fabio anymore. Right, we'll get into the fights and we'll start with the main event. I'll kick us off just because I think this fight is pretty cut and dry, to be honest, and hopefully somebody disagrees with me. We have Israel Adesanya back down at middleweight fighting Marvin Vettori. Vettori's obviously been on a pretty good run recently, picked up a couple of good wins. Israel obviously coming off the loss to Jan Blachowicz. To me, this is probably going to be more one-sided than the first fight. The first fight, obviously, Marvin managed to get a couple of takedowns for a little bit of mat time. Israel eventually got back up and dominated the striking. What we saw in Marvin's last fight, to me, showed all of the weaknesses, but all of the positives to his game. Right, the positives being that he could follow a game plan to an absolute T. Right, if you set that guy a game plan, he's going to go out there and execute it to the best of his ability and not deviate once. That's fantastic. That is a brilliant trait of a fighter, right? If you're a coach, it's a good game planner. One of the number one traits that you want is for somebody to actually follow that game plan, right? We know the story of Khabib. He comes in the fourth round and Javier's like, right, we're going to wrestle. He's like, no, coach. I'm going to be like Mike Tyson this round. And he's like, no. Let's, Jesus fucking Christ. There's Edson Barbosa out there. Please wrestle, right? He's like, no, coach. I'm Muhammad Ali. Watch. And he's like, oh, Jesus fucking Christ. So, that I think is a really good trait for Marvin Vettori. The other trait he has in abundance is he seems to have fixed his cardio issues of his early UFC tenure, right? And I think that's massive and will be massive against Izzy. However, what we also saw was no killer instinct. He bites on feints more than I bite on food, right? And I don't feel like his fight IQ has evolved as much as it should have in the time that he's been at the highest level. Does anyone agree with those opening statements? And then we can get on to Izzy.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, I would be leaning heavily towards Izzy in this fight as well. I think it was the perfect fight for him to have coming off that Jan loss in comparison to maybe a matchup against Robert Whittaker. I looked back and just tried to figure out how or if Vettori could do it and what he should do. And basically his game plan, Jan outstruck Izzy in parts of that fight, which I think surprised everybody, including Israel Adesanya. I don't think that Marvin Vettori has those striking skills in his rep. Like, he doesn't have the striking skills that Big Jan has. And I think what he did in round 3 is his best route to victory. But even when he got the takedowns against Izzy was able to get back to his feet. Vettori landed very little damage. Like you said, he bites on those feints. Like, Israel had him stood still for long portions of that fight, and he was just eating up that lead leg. And I think if we want to move on to Izzy, I think that will be Izzy's, what we've seen in that first fight will be exactly what we'll see in this fight, maybe multiplied by 10. I think he's going to come at him harder. He said after the last fight, Izzy said after the last fight with Vettori that he underestimated how good Vettori's head movement was. And yeah, he's not going to underestimate it anymore. He's going to study hard, and I think he'll find the answers to get Vettori out of there.
So go on, Robbie.
Yeah, I mean, what I was going to say, there's two things I was going to say, really. One, the fact that he can follow a game plan is all well and good, but the game plan has not really been written on how to beat Izzy. So, what I don't know. I'm not a professional coach. I don't game plan very well, but I would imagine they're going to struggle to work out exactly how to play it. So being able to stick to a game plan is all well and good, but
you need the game plan.
You need the game plan.
Sure.
But if you can stick to that game plan and the game plan is not working, you need to have an ability to switch it up. And his game plan was not working in the first fight either.
And that's where the IQ comes in, because how does he switch it up?
So this was
when you look at the Jan fight, Ian said it a minute ago. Everybody says, "Oh, he got the takedown and won for the takedown," and apparently that's the blueprint to beat Izzy now, and it's not. Jan is woefully underestimated by most people. And he has 3 rounds of pure striking with Izzy. And everybody said, oh, it was shit, it looks weird. And he's just good at striking. It just doesn't look good. It's not conventional. Vettori does not have that skill. Vettori has to stand in front of him to be able to get a takedown, which is when Adesanya is going to put the pace on him. He's vicious. When he wants to finish you, he's vicious. And that's where I think he'll get caught. I think he's going to be too headstrong on need the takedown. He's going to get caught rushing in.
So the two things that I have, and I think the thing that really circulates around this fight, right? It's the reason why Izzy has been able to win almost all of his fights in the UFC. And it's the reason why he lost against Jan Blachowicz. And that's rhythm, right? Against Paulo Costa, you saw Izzy dictate the rhythm from second 1 of round 1. And Paulo Costa was never able to break that rhythm. Jan Blachowicz was able to break that rhythm on multiple occasions early. Right. So we talk about there's no game plan to beat Israel Adesanya. I have a game plan. It's just incredibly difficult to actually, do it. Right. And that game plan is you have to take him out of his rhythm. And you have to do that by timing his shots, countering his shots, counter the counters, right? Bite on the feints, because Jan was biting on the feints hard. But he knew that he was going to bite on the feints. He accepted that. And when the shots came, he made sure he had something in response, right? Rather than doing a Paulo Costa and waiting for the feints to stop to allow him to play, right? Paulo Costa thought it was a game of chess. Izzy moves, Paulo moves. Izzy moves, Paulo moves. Whereas Izzy was like, no, you don't have any pieces. I'm just going to move, right? I think in the Jan Blachowicz fight, the other thing, let's talk about slightly about the takedown, right? Because I think it was really important, was Jan was able to lure Izzy into an understanding that this was just a kickboxing match. It was just about rhythm. And then Jan changed the rhythm entirely with that takedown. Now, everyone here has grappled, right? If you take a man that weighs 20 pounds more than you and he holds you inside control, especially if you've already done 15 minutes of work, it's not a nice feeling if somebody then says, get up, right? So Jan waiting, I thought was fantastic game planning, fantastic fight IQ. I don't think Vettori will do the same thing, as everyone's already mentioned. I don't feel like, although Marvin Vettori does have pretty good head movement and pretty good boxing defenses, it's not going to be enough, because the legs will get worked if the head is moving, right? So, Robbie, what were you going to say?
Well, I mean, the only thing I think I would disagree with slightly is that I think that first fight was a lot closer than people give Vettori credit for. I don't think he got dominated in the striking. I think that was Izzy's, well, obviously bar Blachowicz, might have been the closest fight he's had in the UFC.
Kelvin Gastelum.
Gastelum is the one contending for that. But, I think Vettori did pretty well in that. I think the thing is that Israel has obviously developed a lot more since that fight than Vettori has. And so I think they were very close in that fight. I think this will really be a marker of how much each of them has developed in the meantime.
For sure. I'll offer two things. My first thing is all of the great champions are ultra confident, right? Unshakable confidence. We think about Anderson Silva, we think about GSP, we think about Conor, right? Unshakable confidence. Ronda Rousey back in the day. I wonder, firstly, what's Izzy's confidence like, knowing that he's just took a loss? Now, to me, the Jan Blachowicz fight was actually close enough, right? They weren't blowout rounds by any stretch of the imagination, right? Other than maybe the fourth, because of obvious reasons.
If I could just pipe up there and say, I thought what you were thinking there about Izzy's mentality coming into this fight, but he's a guy who has been knocked dead in kickboxing before, like flatlined. and he still had the mental fortitude to pick himself back up, move to a different sport, and get to the top of that sport, and become a champion in that sport. And I think that plays a bit of testament to his mentality.
I completely agree. The only thing I was going to add to the mentality thing was he just lost one of his closest training partners. Right? Obviously, City Kickboxing suffered a death very recently. A very, very tragic situation. That has to be tough. It's less than a week ago, right? And now we're rolling into, inside 2 weeks, not just having to block out or deal with that situation, but also cut weight, get yourself into a situation where you're able to perform at the highest level after coming off the loss. So my point wasn't just about him losing, because as you say, we've all seen the video of him getting KO'd by Cosmo Alexandra, but it's more everything else that surrounds it, right?
I think fighters at the top of their game have a real good ability to block that kind of stuff out. It's part of, they say it's 80% mental and 20% physical, and like it's pretty true. Like, you have to get yourself mentally prepared before you put your body through some physical work. So, we're not going to find out the answer to that question until Saturday night. But if I had a gun to my head and I was asked to choose what Izzy we're going to see, I think I think fighters have the ability to turn certain emotions into something like, a negative emotion into a positive, where he'll be able to, he'll be frustrated, he'll be sad, he'll be upset, but he'll be able to turn those emotions into something positive and bring it into the cage on Saturday night. And Vettori might be on the receiving end of something very bad after that. Like, it's a fair point that you made. And like I said, we're not going to find out truly until Saturday night, but I wouldn't be too worried going in, and it wouldn't be a big sticking point for me before this fight.
I have to agree. I mean, Adesanya struck me as one of those guys who is particularly mentally, not just tough, but kind of mentally savvy. I think firstly about the Blachowicz fight, like, I think he's intelligent enough to know that a lot of it was to do with the weight, and that it's just kind of back to the drawing board sort of thing with that. And Vettori is not going to pose the same challenges. I don't think that's going to rattle his confidence. And yeah, I mean, he's tough enough that I imagine the death, tragic as it is, probably isn't going to affect his game all that much.
All right, well, let's move to picks. Ian, who have you got and how?
I think Vittori's only saving grace in this fight might be his chin. Strangely enough, it's not a great thing that you can say about a fighter, but he took some heavy shots in that first fight. And if he has the ability to keep taking those shots in a 5-round fight, I'd fancy Israel definitely to win a decision here. But if it all depends what his game plan is, whether he wants to attack the body and the legs as well of Vettori. I think if he cuts down that leg, we could see Vettori in big trouble. And once you start hurting a fighter's legs, they'll start thinking about that, which will open up more shots to the head. So I will go. I think I'll go Israel Adesanya KO TKO in round 4.
Agent Romanov.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see this going the distance. I think Izzy's too good. He's going to have a brilliant game plan for it. I don't think his recent experiences are going to have rattled him. Yeah, he's gonna finish Vettori. I'd say the same. Probably, knockout 4th or 5th round. It might take a while, but he'll get it done by the end.
Hawkeye.
I think Izzy in 3. He'll finish Vettori. I think what he wants to do is put a statement finish on Vettori to say, I know I lost the Black Yan fight. I know he was bigger than me. The excuses are there. That's fine. But don't forget, I am the best at middleweight. And I think that's what he wants to do.
So I feel like you and I have very similar thoughts on a lot of MMA, but specifically this league. And I'm calling Izzy inside 3 by submission.
Oh.
And the reason why I say that is because
to make a point.
He's talked, to make a point, absolutely, but he talked after the Kelvin Gastelum fight that he really wanted to submit him, right? And was really upset that he didn't submit him. He went then and trained not immediately after, but before the Yan fight, he spent time in San Diego with Atos and Andre Galvao. He was given a purple belt, and he said that he felt his jiu-jitsu game had leveled up significantly, which you'd expect for spending a month with Andre Galvao training with him every day, right? And he wanted to submit Jan Blachowicz, right? Now that didn't happen either. But we've talked often about, the way to beat Izzy is to change his rhythm and whatever. Well, I wonder if we see something similar, right? I wonder if we see him beat the legs, beat the body, beat the head, and then either a sloppy takedown attempt, Izzy reverses it and we get something, or maybe we see Izzy shoot. I doubt it, but maybe we see, even a tie clinch sweep or something similar, right? I think your point is absolutely right that he wants a statement win here. Doesn't need one, but wants a statement win here. And what better statement win than to catch your first submission?
You'll get good odds on that. You put some money on it, you'll get good odds on that.
Yeah, so I'd say Izzy submission inside 3.
Fair.